Welcome to the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast, a presentation of Real Country 92.1 Hank FM. Live from Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks, the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. And now, with head coach Robby Jones, here's the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist.
Bearcats with their traditional four-man front at the 44-yard line, and Beal will throw on first down. The pass is picked off. This is going to be a touchdown. Adrian Fuller, 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. 48 yards on the pick six. The defense strikes again, and the Bearcats open it up to 20-7.
And that was in a sequence in which the Bearcats touched the ball 3 times and scored on those plays en route to an impressive victory in their area playoff game last week against Abilene, and to advancing to being again practicing on Thanksgiving. We welcome you to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast here at Boo Rays of New Orleans, celebrating their 20th anniversary. Of course, they have locations in Lake Worth and in Crowley. As always, we're brought to you by the 2 presenting sponsors, H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. Number 1 and 11-1 Aledo traveling to West Texas to play on Black Friday in the 5A Division I Region I semifinals, facing 7-5 Amarillo Tascosa. That game is going to be out in Snyder. Hank FM will have all of the action for you. Pre-game show is at 12:30. The kickoff is at 1 o'clock. Special big podcast tonight, 3 segments. We'll start with Aledo head coach Robby Jones. We'll look back at the dominating 59-14 win over Abilene. We'll look ahead this week to the Tascosa Rebels. First meeting between Aledo and what we believe is an Amarillo ISD school in general. We know it's the first meeting between Aledo and Tascosa, but I think it's kind of interesting that we're going that far because Aledo's never played anyone from out there. Came close when they played Plainview about 10, 12 years ago, but that's about as close as they got to the Amarillo area. Our second segment will be featuring offensive lineman Payton Williams and linebacker Chase Williams. This offense averaging nearly 465 yards. Wilbur, part of a defense that forced 4 turnovers last week. And finally, in our third segment, we will be celebrating the just concluded volleyball season. The Lady Cats finished at 36-8, advanced to the 5A Division I state semifinals. Senior opposite Kinsley Elms and junior outside hitter Alyssa Todd will be with us, along with head coach Claire Gay. All right, Coach, congratulations. Always good to be practicing on Thanksgiving. 12th consecutive year for your program to reach the semifinals. Culture, good players, but what else does that signal about a program being able to put something together like that?
Yeah, just the consistency, the fact that we've been able to do it over and over and over again, and, we're going to try to keep that going as long as we can because, we enjoy practicing over the Thanksgiving holidays. This morning was, the first of that, and we got the kids up at 7:30 to watch video, and so when they got there, the weather was really nice, and then at 8 o'clock we go outside to start practice, and they realized a cold front had come through, and a lot of them were having to go back in and put some sweats on. So it was a good cold practice this morning.
Yeah, and of course I believe this week all the kids are out, so you have different schedule on that. Of course you've dealt with this before because Thanksgiving has been a week off for just about every Texas high school across, or every public school across the state for many, many years now. So what's been kind of the routine to deal with a week like this?
We just basically, they get the whole afternoon off. We were done today by 11 o'clock, so then the kids get to go all have, some type of lunch together, something like that, and then they have the afternoon off. The coaches, we stay up there, we watch the practice video, and, continue to watch, our opponent and try to see what we can do better. And, it just gives us a little bit different, schedule. So we got everything done by 11. We're going to bring them back in 7:30 tomorrow to watch practice video, so they get to watch themselves and practice and what they weren't doing right. And then we'll also show a little bit more of the Tascosa video to show them, exactly what, it looks like. And then the difficult thing this morning was our JV scout team offense, because they have to try to simulate what Tascosa does on offense, and it's totally different than anything that they've had to do all year.
Yeah.
So we even had to bring some of the guys. We've had Centennial in the district for the last 2 years, so we've got some seniors that are backups on the varsity that have been doing that scout team for a couple of years.
Right.
And we actually had to bring a couple of them down there so that we can start getting a little bit better look of what the Tascosa offense is going to look like. Josh Johnson, one of those guys. Josh has always done a really good job with the scout team. And so it really, it's going to be that first couple of series when we're going against Tascosa's offense is going to be big, to adjust to the speed of the game and how they actually operate that offense.
Yeah, they run that flex bone, and we'll get to Tascosa here in a little bit. But let's go start with, of course, last Friday against Abilene. You start with the turnover, Eagles score, and then you run off 56 straight. And it's not the way you wanted to start, of course, but you always learn little things about your team in the fact of the response, the way they just came back and then fired on all cylinders.
Yeah, and that's been the case all season. We have something bad go wrong against us during the game, and then our kids respond and overcome, and that's what we've been doing all year. And it was good to see that. You hate getting that, initial turnover. We got the ball, they deferred, so we got the ball first. And so our goal is always, hey, let's go take the lead right away. And we did the opposite. We turned the ball over and give them great field position to get their first touchdown.
Yeah, I think maybe the good that comes out of it and said, look, you are human. These things will happen, but now it's about how you respond to something like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing our kids have done all season. They did it in the Denton-Ryan game. They did it in the Richland game. They did it a couple times throughout the Geyer game. So they have done a good job responding to the adversity when it happens, and we want to make sure that continues.
Now, I mentioned this a few moments ago as I was leading us into the podcast about the 3 consecutive times that any Bearcat touched the ball where you all scored. It started with Ray Guillory's 76-yard touchdown run, then Adrian Fuller on the highlight that you heard, the 48-yard pick six, and then Caden Finley, the catch and run, 92-yard touchdown pass. The explosiveness with this team has always been there, but this just seemed to be next level with what those plays you got, especially from Ray and from Caden.
Oh, yeah, and of course those are next level type of athletes. Those guys are going to go play Saturdays, and hopefully, if their career at the next level continues to progress, hopefully we might see some more Bearcats playing on Sundays. But those guys, are exceptional athletes, and we need them to make plays like that, especially during this playoff run. They're, the big time, players got to make, big time plays and big time games, and right now they are, and we need them to make more of those throughout this playoff run.
I had a friend of mine who texted me because he's watched Caden off and on, and he said he looks like a college sophomore right now, just as how he's built.
Yeah, I mean,
he has pretty good bloodlines too with his dad.
Yeah, you can thank your parents for that. That's some God-given abilities and the frame and all that, and then he's also put in the work.
Yes.
And I think that's what's shown over this past year. The leaps that he's made from his freshman sophomore year to this year, are big. And I think it's the work that he's put in. He's of course he's got the bloodline and all that, but the kid, is not just relying on his athletic ability. He's working hard and doing a great job of making sure that he's making the most of his opportunities.
I was talking with Kyle Hicks during the broadcast on Friday, playfully calling Gavin and Guillory and Finley kind of like the new triplets here. I mean, you never downplay the importance of guys like Blake Burdine and Jamal Hollister, Bain Martin, and Caden Wingfield, because they are very important parts to what this team can do game in and game out on the offensive end. But it just seems like when you get those 3 clicking, it's really going to be a tough job for anyone to defend this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the case a lot of times with our offense. When we had all the way back to Matt Bishop, Jonathan Gray, you also had Michael Mann at receiver to go along with that. And then the really good offense that we had in 19 with Jace McClellan at running back. You had Jake Bishop at quarterback, and then he had 2 really good go-to receivers that are playing college football right now with Money Parks and JoJo Earl. So, normally when we have, an explosive offense like we do right now, it's because you have a quarterback that's a really good operator of the offense. You got a really good running back, and then you got a go-to receiver.
In this game, by the way, Ray Guillory, 147 yards and 2 touchdowns, also caught a pass for 20 yards. Finley, 169 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then Beard threw for 251 yards and 4 touchdowns. If you get that game in and game out, I think you'd probably take that every week, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get that from those guys every week, and maybe a little bit more.
Exactly. Why not be greedy if you can go for it?
I'm pretty greedy.
Exactly. Okay, so film study is so important to preparation. And, Fuller said something to Mercedes Meyer in the post-game interview about what he saw on film that allowed him to make the play on the pick six. And so what do you think has changed from his game? Because he leads this team in 4 interceptions now, but what has changed from where he was in the opener against Geyer when he played pretty well in that game to where he is now?
I think he's got a whole new level of confidence out there, because when we went against Geyer, that was his first ever start on the varsity. He was a backup all year the year before. Didn't get to play just a whole lot. Did play some, mainly in mop-up duty. But, the fact that he has gotten so many, starts under his belt now, and his confidence is through the roof right now. And, he's not giving up a whole lot of passes, and we need him to continue to do that.
Okay, when it comes to film study, is it a repetition thing with film study to really look at every kind of idiosyncrasy of an opponent, just so that when it comes live during the game, they can automatically spot it?
Yeah, and a lot of it comes with their initial reads. If they're reading the quarterback, the quarterback's footwork, sometimes he's going to be allowed to jump certain routes if he sees the quarterback do certain footwork, stuff like that. And that comes from studying the video and watching it over and over and over. And he goes, okay, I know when the quarterback does this type of drop, this is where he's going with the ball, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and I thought he did a really good job just one-on-one with Ryland Bradford there. Very talented receiver for Abilene, but good hand fighting between both of them. Of course, Adrian had the 2 picks, the one down down at your 5-yard line, which actually turned into a touchdown drive for you guys anyway. But just the way he competed against a guy like that.
Yeah, that was a really good receiver. That was a Division I recruit. And, Adrian's got some Division II stuff going right now. But, it shows that he can go up against those type of guys and make plays and keep them from having just really, really big games. And same thing with Kai Taylor on the other side. He did a really good job as well.
Sophomore quarterback Tristan Beal for Abilene had not thrown an interception coming into that ball game, and then he threw 3. The way that you all just made life so difficult for him, I'm sure as a sophomore he hadn't faced a defense like this, but you wanted to make sure that he was going to learn the hard way in that game.
Yeah, we do a really good job up front of getting some pressures on quarterbacks. Now, their offensive line was doing a really good job early of protecting him. Then Coach McCone started to change some things up on him, started bringing some linebackers and started making him a little more uncomfortable, and we weren't just staying in one coverage. Mixing up the coverages on the young quarterback sometimes makes it difficult on them.
Sure.
And that's what Coach McCone was doing, was putting the guy in a difficult situation.
Kind of a couple of hot read blitzes too from Ben McElroy. One where he mistimed his jump and missed him, but the second time, same play, didn't miss him.
Yeah, we don't want him to jump in that situation, because anytime you leave your feet with a quarterback, the quarterback might be just pump faking to get you up in the air and then take off running, which is what happened. We want him to just go run through the quarterback right there. And, Ben learns from that, and we're going to make sure that we don't allow that to happen again.
But it was a really good call in either case. It unfortunately didn't work the first time, but again, he had the right read on that, and that was the right call on it.
Yeah, it was the right call. Mixing things up on them and bringing some things that they might not have been expecting.
Now, because of that, your turnover ratio is up to +10. So what are the drills that you think have created that type of situation for you all to be that successful to this point of the year?
We normally will do some turnover circuits throughout the year. I'm not so sure that they're going to be able to do them this week, because we are so concerned with the different offense that we're facing with the flex bone, triple option. Last week they didn't do as much of it, but they throughout the season there is a day that is dedicated to what they call a turnover circuit. So they are working on getting those turnovers, but I think it's also the level of play that our kids are playing at right now.
Okay, so as we start looking to Tascosa in great detail here, heavy run team, as you mentioned, the flex bone that they run, they're averaging 367 yards per game. That's built around their quarterback, Colton Fulton, over 1,000 yards. And, you mentioned the fact that you all obviously faced Centennial back in the day where they ran their same thing. Did you actually pull out film of Centennial to show your players just to kind of familiarize them, or did you mainly stick with more with what Tascosa does?
We're focusing on what Tascosa does. Even though it's a similar offense, it's not exactly the same as what Centennial does. Some different routes and different schemes that Tascosa has. So we're focusing on Tascosa, and making sure our guys know what it is they're planning on doing.
And as far as going back to Fulton here, and of course, they haven't even thrown for 1,000 yards collectively this year. He's not even at 800 yards. But this is the kind of team that, with a flex bone, they're not going to, they're going to just dive, pitch, option, all that sort of thing, and then they'll lull you into where they're going to try and hit you up with it. And Kyle Geller's teams at Centennial would do the same thing. And so, What's the tendency that you have to look for in the event they decide to drop back and throw it?
I mean, we just got to make sure that we are keying on our keys, and that's what we talked with the defense about today is everybody's got to play assignment football, all right? And then, when we do get the reads, their reads are a little bit different than what Centennial's were. We were able to pick up, when Centennial was passing, when they weren't. We don't have as good a read on these guys, but, they're going to take shots. And they do have one kid that's committed to UTEP. I believe he's committed to go play defensive back, but they also play him at receiver, number 4, and I can't remember that. I'm terrible with names. But number 4 is their UTEP commit, and they try to throw deep balls to him. And then they got some other receivers that have gotten behind people as well.
Okay. And defensively, they go out of a 4-3 look from what it appears, and so the challenge, what that side presents for your offense.
I think they've got a really good defensive line. It's comparable size-wise to anybody that we've seen as far as being big. So their defensive line is the main thing that stands out when you see them on defense. I'm not saying anything bad. Of course, I just talked about the fact that they got a cornerback that's going to UTEP, but but the defensive line is the strong point of their defense.
Okay, so in this event now, because you get to practice on Thanksgiving, so in terms of I guess the words of wisdom for your players when they go celebrate Thanksgiving dinner, is that a case where, like, let's not load up so heavy with carbs, or how do we kind of approach that? So you want them to enjoy the meal, but at the same time, let's not overdo it because we got work to do the next day.
Right, and I think our kids are smart about that. They know not to go, overeat on Thursday, because we're going to have to get up early and leave. We're going to have a 6:50 departure time, and they're going to be on charter buses, so they're going to get to relax a little bit on the charter buses and maybe have a little bit enough room to maybe get a little nap in, and then they just got to be smart with what they're doing. And we've talked about that. We talked about that last week before we got into the Thanksgiving holiday. Is you might have buddies that don't have a goal that they're trying to achieve right now. They might be out doing some things that they shouldn't be, and we can't go fall in line with that. We got to make sure that we keep the main thing, and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing to make ourselves ready for the game.
Is there you obviously, coaches can't really mandate a curfew, but what time do you want your guys to generally try to go to sleep? Because they're going to get to the field house, roughly 6:30, something like that.
Yeah, I would like for them to go to bed about 8 or 9 o'clock, but telling teenage kids to go to bed that early, that's going to be pretty difficult.
As I look at Chase and I look at Payton from behind, I'm not sure I'm going to get much support on that, or you're going to get much support on that 8 or 9 o'clock.
Right, but our practice, being on an early morning practice schedule like we are year round, our kids are used to that. They're used to having to get up early and going and doing things early. So I think that's going to be to our advantage.
About a 3-hour bus drive, too. So if you leave roughly around 7 o'clock, give or take, you'll get there about 10-ish, give or take there. And so that should give you enough time to maybe stretch the legs and that sort of thing.
We're planning on stopping on the way, just the other side of Abilene. There's a rest stop that we've always stopped at when we go out west to get the kids off the bus. Of course, they have restrooms there, and then we're also going to have sandwiches and things like that. So we're going to make a little pit stops. The plan is to get to the stadium about 10:30.
All right, sounds good. All right, Coach, we'll look forward to it. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to watching the Bearcats go to West Texas out in Snyder as they take on the Tascosa Rebels. A reminder that this podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And by Hiley Mazda, looking for a new ride? Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth has you covered. Right now, get $3,500 off MSRP or 0% interest for 36 months on the 5-star safety CX-5 and CX-30. Hurry in, these offers won't last long. Experience top-notch service and unbeatable deals in their new state-of-the-art facility in Fort Worth, or check out the extensive Mazda lineup at HileyMazdaofFortWorth.com. Family-owned and operated for over 30 years. When we come back on the other side of this break, we will be joined by Payton Williams and by Chase Wilburn. Podcast continues after this timeout.
It is a stretch play to Guillory, who gets to the outside 30, 35, 40. Down the sideline he goes, and he is gone. Ray Guillory, 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, Aledo Bearcats.
And that 76-yard touchdown run by Ray Guillory was one of the big highlighted plays in the Bearcats' 59-14 victory over Abilene in the 5A Region 1 Division 1 area playoff. We welcome you back to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. I'm Kevin Lonnquist, our second segment about to get started. Let's get going with the Aledo Alumni Report first, and we'll start with Money Parks, wide receiver at Utah. We just heard Coach Jones talk about him a few moments ago. 300 yards receiving, and this is senior year, averaging 14 yards a catch, 3 touchdowns, and he finishes his career this coming Friday at Central Florida. The Utes, unfortunately, at 5-7, they will not be going to a bowl this year. And then Isaac Sohn at North Texas, the former offensive lineman. The Eagles will be at Temple on Saturday. They are 5-6. They're trying to get to bowl eligibility if they win that game. Isaac Sohn, former Aledo Bearcat. Now, pleased to be joined by offensive lineman Payton Williams and linebacker Chase Wilbur. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so let's just talk about initial impressions of the game as far as just, we talked with Coach Jones right at the start. Of course, the early turnover, you guys fall behind 7-0. You never want to say, well, that's a good thing we fell behind. But at the same time, just responding to that early adversity. What was kind of the take? Because obviously, Payton, you were out on the field when the turnover occurred. And so what was the thinking about, okay, we've got to bounce back and just move on from what happened on that play?
I think the biggest deal was just trusting each other that everything was going to be all right. Mm-hmm. Trust is one big thing that we all have with each other, and knowing that we're going to do our jobs. Because obviously people get frustrated. Everyone thinks that blame him. We didn't do any of that. You know what I mean? We just reloaded, got back on the field, and did our job. And so I think that was the biggest deal, was just trusting everyone.
And then for you, Chase, obviously you guys couldn't keep him out of the end zone, but we'll talk about how things turned, obviously, for the better in a few moments. But just giving up the touchdown early, what was kind of the approach on the defense, though, just kind of responding after what had happened in those first few moments?
We knew that we were in a tough situation to begin with, but that we tried to obviously stop them, but we couldn't. But we knew that we had to stay relaxed and that it's a long ball game and that, that won't happen all game, and it was just a busted coverage that we need to fix.
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit about as far as just the lightning quickness of this team and both sides of the ball. You have the Ray Guillory 76-yard touchdown run, and then on your side you obviously have the big pick six from Adrian Fuller, and then you guys come back to the catch and run of 92 yards for Caden Finley here. I just want to get both of your perspectives. When you guys can just go boom, boom, boom like that, is it kind of fun just watching it from behind or something like that? I'll ask you about that, Payton, especially with the 2 offensive touchdowns that you scored.
Yeah, no, it was it's relieving for us, especially as O-line. We ain't got to run down there. But, no, it's awesome. Just being able to see that. And I was actually talking about this the other day. It was kind of funny. I was like, you really kind of stop and appreciate, what is around you. And that is greatness in the making. You know what I mean? It's awesome seeing that. It's really fun watching it. And so just being a part of that is awesome. And obviously everyone has their own journey, and being able to see that is crazy.
Okay, and so what did you see as far as on the Finley 92? Because that was just a little quick out, then turned into a catch and run. He gets a blocker right around the 15-yard line, and then boom, he's off.
That was crazy because it was 61 zone. So we run RPOs and stuff like that, and so it was 61 zone. I blocked my guy. I think I pancaked him on that play. I looked to the right, and Finley's already 50 yards downfield.
What a shock. He pancaked this guy. But anyway, go ahead. You were going to say.
But yeah, he was already 50 yards downfield by the time I got back up.
And then on the pick six, where were you on that, Chase, when you saw Adrian pick that off and he jumped the route?
I was the linebacker on that side, but they ran RPO, so quarterback picked ball and belly. And so I was playing run, and then all of a sudden I see him pull it real quick and turn it. So I try to jump and just try to get a hand up, but then I turn around and see Adrian got a good jump on it, and he's already in the end zone. So
were you comparing notes because you had the pick six against Azel and say, I did that better than you did, or anything like that, or what'd you think?
I didn't think Adrian was that fast, but he got to the end zone pretty quick.
Okay, by the way, Chase Wilbur leads this defense with 51 total tackles. 9.5 of those are for loss, and of course the 2 interceptions, the pick six against Azel to get that going. You guys have been really locked in really these last 4 games, Azel, Denton High, Chisholm Trail, and of course last week against Abilene. What do you think's different in these last 4 weeks? I've asked this question of the guys who have come here on the previous podcast, but from your perspective, Chase, what do you think's different from that Richland game to where you are now?
We knew that it's win or go home, and that it's really time to, no messing around, that it's playoff time, and that this is where Aledo thrives, and that it's time to, keep doing what we do in playoffs.
And then for you, Payton?
I think it was really mainly a locker room thing. You know what I mean? All the After the Richmond game, we had some stuff going on in the locker room, and after that, I think everyone was just like, "This needs to be aside from us. This doesn't need to be in the team." And so ever since that, I think we've just had a great locker room feel. You know what I mean? Everyone kind of stays to themselves. It's just a team environment, and we've kind of treated it as such, as like we are a team. It doesn't matter who you like and who you don't like. We are a team, and this is what we're gonna do to reach our end goal, and that's winning state.
Okay, so you were part of this offensive line last year that, this is, people will argue that offense last year, maybe the second best offense that's come through Aledo since the 2013 team that scored over 1,000 points. But I want to ask you about what do you think has emerged from this offense this year that's kind of carved its own reputation and developed it into its own special way?
Yeah, no, I think we're a completely different offense than we were last year. I mean, obviously we had a lot of older guys last year. We have everybody's new. You know what I mean? I was the only returning starting O-lineman. Finn and Ray were the only two other returning starters. And so for that, we kind of carved our own identity out. And so I think the biggest deal is like those big plays. You know what I mean? We get a lot of big plays, but we also can put the ball down your throat and just go. And so Ray has really broke out our offense, especially on those big plays where we're running 60 zone, and he turns it from a 4-yard gain where we're just moving down the field to a 50-yard gain. You know what I mean? And it's really awesome to see that.
This note was courtesy of the Deacon, our remarkable statistician. Aledo this year has 14 one-play scoring drives this year. So you only need one play to score. And so and we saw 2 of those on Friday. When you see that kind of efficiency, the way Gavin has matured running this offense, what's been kind of noticeable to you just protecting him?
I think he's really evolved as like keeping calm. Obviously, I think we kind of saw there was a lot of movement in that first game, especially against Geyer, and he's just really stayed calm. He's really trusted us, and like I said, I think that's the biggest deal that we overcame, and has really been the mark on our team is that we trust each other, and that's what's really led us. So Gavin trusting the O-line that we're going to do what we need to do to get the ball out and not really worry about pressures on him is remarkable, and I thank him for trusting us, and I thank the O-line for giving him what he needs to trust us.
Now, Chase, obviously I think you started in the game against Northwest last year, but you got a lot of experience just being a part of that defense last year as a reserve. But this year, you all have forced 22 turnovers, collected 17 sacks, 62 tackles for loss. These are all unit numbers for the year. But most importantly, the one that always stands out to me is the number of quarterback hurries. That's 80. And so the fact, the sacks are one thing, but if you can get a quarterback out of his rhythm and change and get him under duress in some way, that's very important in terms of just throwing the timing off for an offense. Can you speak to that?
I feel like our D-line is one of the best parts of our team, especially the defense, too. They can get back to the quarterback, and it makes it a lot easier for the DBs and for us linebackers to get to our man that's running a route and, either knock him off the route or even cover him, because we know that quarterback is uneasy in the pocket. We know that he feels the pressure, and he knows that he's got to get rid of the ball quick, and usually he goes down with a sack. So, I feel like the quarterback hurries have been a big part this year.
Yeah, and with Beal, he very talented sophomore quarterback for Abilene last week, had not thrown an interception coming into the game. You guys forced 4 turnovers because he had a fumble deep on your end of the field where you guys were able to turn them away when they were trying to score. What were you all trying to do there to at least get him uncomfortable? Because obviously this is probably going to be the best defense that he faced all year.
All week, Coach McComb was talking about how he's a young quarterback, and that if we get pressure on him, if we start making him make mistakes, then he's going to crumble because he's young. And so we knew that if we got after him early and then the pressure was high, that the offense was going to start falling apart, and that's what happened for us.
I want to talk about the relationship, too, that you have kind of formed this trio with you and Owen Henderson in the middle and then Ben McElroy on the other side. What's that been like as you guys have grown up through this season together?
Yes, sir. I see them the most. I see them more than my own mom and my brother. So I'm with them every single day. And so, it's really been a full year since January off season. We lived in the same rack. We died together in off season, and now we're playing football together, and we just have this trust with each other that we've built over time.
Okay, and then for you, Payton, obviously you just talked about the fact that you were the lone returning starter on the offensive line. So getting all these other guys together, and of course you all had some movement too because other guys were out. You guys lost Amari Dinbu for a few weeks, and so that sort of thing. And Ryan Campbell was shifting all over the place, and so. But getting back to this, finally getting everybody back together. I think it was the Denton game, or maybe it was the Azle game, as far as just getting everyone back together. What's that meant, though, just solidifying things since that return of everyone back to where they need to be?
It's everything. You know what I mean? Because obviously I had, I broke my leg. Obviously, I was coming back off an injury that first game.
Right.
And so, like, progressing through the season, I really couldn't find my rhythm in the very early parts of it because I wasn't playing next to the same two people every game. I mean, I didn't play next to the same two people until I want to say it was Granbury or Richland. And I mean, that's already 6-7 games into season. So getting everyone back on the field and trusting, like, knowing what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are, like, on every play is a big deal. You know what I mean? You know what you can run with a solidified O-line. You don't know what you can run whenever a guy comes in. Like a guy comes in or you move another guy to another place because you really don't know. It's always a question mark. And game is way different than practice. And so you can practice hard, but it's going to be different when that added game pressure is on you. And so you don't really know exactly what you can run when you're not with the same O-line. If you have the same O-line, you know you can run and you know who you can trust. So obviously that's really helped having Dimbu back, Cartwright staying at right tackle, Ryan at center. I mean, like, because our snaps have gotten a lot better, especially with Ryan at center. And so Kruger, obviously, we can trust him on run block and all that stuff. So.
Okay, I want to ask you guys about just the deal of practicing on Thanksgiving. It's, again, if you didn't hear it, 12 consecutive seasons for this program to play in the regional semifinals, and that usually means you're going to be practicing on Thanksgiving, playing on Thanksgiving weekend. And obviously the state championship is always the goal, of course, but one of the things that coaches always talk about is let's get to practice on Thanksgiving because that means, number one, we're having a really good season, and then we can kind of take it from there. Just what does that mean to practice on Thanksgiving, knowing that there's another game to play? And I'll start with you on this, Payton.
Oh, I love it because I eat a lot on Thanksgiving, so I get to burn extra calories. So I get extra
He
room.
just said, and so anyway. But then for you, Chase, I mean, because second year to go through this, what's that mean to just be out there in the morning knowing that it's a national holiday, of course, but the idea that you still have to go to work, if you will?
It felt weird because usually we're at practice when it's dark, and then today it was light outside, so it felt a little weird. And the weather was cold too, so you knew that it's usually playoff time. That's football weather, and you know that you have to lock in more this time of the year. Okay,
so let's talk a little bit about Amarillo Tascosa. Again, they're 7-5. Record doesn't look all that great, but it can be a dangerous team that run that flex bone offense, and that's so. You know, Chase, you in knowing that and getting ready for something that you haven't seen, what's the challenge in preparing for something like this?
Discipline. That's what Coach McCone's been preaching today and a little bit and during film today. And we just have to play disciplined football. You know, one mess up out of any of 11 guys can result in a touchdown after that. So this flex bone, it just takes a lot of discipline and doing your job in assignment football.
What's the problem that their quarterback presents for you guys? What's the biggest thing that you've noticed on film with him? Because, you know, the thing that I see about Colton Fulton, over 1,000 yards rushing, and he can pop one in the passing game if you guys aren't careful on that.
Running the football is a threat. Me and Ben's job as outside linebackers is to get the ball out of his hands because we know that with the football in his hands, he's getting at least 5 yards. So we're trying to get the football out of his hands and make him pitch it, and then we all rally to the pitch man. So we just want the ball out of his hands. Okay, and then for you, Payton, Coach Jones was talking about how impressive their defensive line is. So what's the challenge that unit poses for your side?
All right, that will probably be the biggest D line that we play all year. You know, like one kid is 6'4", 280, and we don't have the measurables on the other kid, but he looks just like him, or just like 71. So I think the biggest deal is obviously since how good our off-season program is, we should have the advantage whenever it comes to strength. And so we got to use that to our advantage. We got to move them off the ball, let Ray open up holes, all that stuff. So I think the biggest deal is just getting our hands on them, extension, moving them back because on film, they don't like getting moved at.
Yeah.
They don't like getting moved back.
Okay, and then as far as just, you guys are football players, you're creatures of routine. That's kind of what this game is built around in terms of just the early get-up time on Friday morning to get on the bus to travel out there. Anything that you guys have talked about just maybe as teammates saying, how do we approach this day? I mean, do we treat it just like going to practice on Monday, or is it like going to film session on Saturday? How do you guys look at a long road trip like that?
I think I'm going to treat it like as if we had practices the next morning, go to bed early, make sure that I drink a lot of water starting now, but, you can't do a lot of stupid stuff on Thursday knowing you have to get up real early the next day.
And then for you, Payton?
Yeah, I'm just treat it like practice. I mean, it's the exact same time that we should be ready for practice is the time that we're getting on the bus. I mean, it's 6:50, so especially a 1 p.m. game, it's going to be a little weird with the sun out, but I think we'll be fine.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Thanks so much for doing this. To my immediate left is Chase Wilbur, and to my far left is Payton Williams. Give it up for these two young men. And we want to remind you that the Aledo Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Knife Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And by Hiley Mazda. Hiley Mazda Fort Worth has you covered. Right now, get $3,500 off MSRP or 0% interest for 36 months on the 5-star safety rated CX-5 and CX-30. Hiley Mazda Fort Worth, family owned and operated for more than 30 years. Special third segment coming up. We celebrate the volleyball season. Stick around, the podcast returns.
Pass is caught by Finley as he breaks a tackle at the 15. Run down the near sideline. He's running away. 30, 35, 40. Amanda behind him at the 50. Now he's got open room. This is going to be 92 yards for Caden Finley, who jogs it in from the last 15 yards out, and the Bearcats extend it to 27-7.
And that was one of the big explosive plays. So we got to hear all three explosive plays for the Bearcats as they routed Abilene last Friday, 59-14. We welcome you back to the third and final segment of the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. We're celebrating the volleyball season. Tremendous run for this team under the direction of Claire Gay. Folks, let's give it up for these young ladies. So all this team did was go 36-8, win the district championship, the District 5-5A championship. Didn't drop a set, which is really unheard of to do that when you win a district championship. Also won, I think it was 27 consecutive matches there, getting to the second state semifinal under Coach Gay, who's in her 8th year. Is that all you could do?
That's all we could do.
Okay, that's all you could do. All right, well then, thanks for being with us. No, first of all, congratulations on the run, Coach Gay. What was it about this team that you identified, perhaps even going back to spring workouts, or maybe it was when you all got returned back late July, about saying, we've got a chance to have a really special year if this, and this click for us? What do you think those were?
Absolutely. You know, they're under a leadership of 9 seniors. Most of those seniors have been a part of the varsity program since their sophomore year. Big role players as far as their junior and senior year went. So I think that the collective group of 9 decided very early that they would stay together. They wouldn't let the fractures happen. And really, they just created a foundation for this team and this season, and working together and being there for one another versus themselves. And that was a true testament to the success that we had.
The two young ladies to my far left here, Alyssa Todd, who has committed to Abilene Christian, 557 kills to lead this team, or at least that's the last I saw. And then Kinsley Elms, who has signed with Lamar, so congratulations to you on that. 418 kills on the year. I want to ask you about this, and I'm going to start with you on this, Alyssa, just about this offense and what caused this thing. You always need to have a good setter who can get the hitters in the right spot here, but what caused this offense to take off like it did?
I think that the setters would trust me, like, at any point in time and could look to me to put the ball down. And we also had great defense to get the ball up, and setters had every option on the front line to score points. How
did you see it, Kinsley, in terms of just what you saw offensively and just why this thing was able to take off and just take control of matches pretty early, if you will, for the most part this year?
I think across our all 3 hitters, every time we were on the front row, all 3 hitters are very even. We can all score. So leaving it up to the setters to kind of watch the other team's blockers, they can make a choice, and it really opens up the hitters.
The communication on the front line is obviously going to be paramount in terms of trying to score. So what's being communicated there? I mean, I'll ask you this on this, Coach Gay, about what you need to have from your front line communicating if your offense is going to run like you want it to run.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the first contact, which is usually the back row. So, and our back row did a wonderful job of giving our setters all the opportunities on the front row. Then you look to the front row to transition and do that quickly so that they're available and they're in a position that they can get to the ball with their feet and to score. And I think the setters had a really good opportunity every time, or for the majority of the season, of allowing them to have all three opportunities to get the hitters involved. And so that, it goes back to that first contact, though, that defense and it can be on the block. It can be the touch off the block that slows the ball down. It can be the passers, behind the block that do that. So a good job to all three of our setters all season long to allow all three options to be available. And obviously these two step up and score. They've got a lot of shot opportunities, and they have good volleyball IQ that they know where to put the ball as far as what's open on the other side. But it does take a lot of communication from the front row and the back row working together to create those kills.
Because it moves so fast. And the one thing I want to ask you about, Kinley, is just how fast this game can move, especially from that initial hit, because you've all got to get into position. And, of course, there's always that flying around there that can create the fake, where's the ball going to go before I spike it, or that sort of thing. So just talk about the speed of it and being able to execute under that rate of speed.
Yeah, I think depending on the team you play, some teams run a faster offense, so that makes you have to transition a lot faster. But being able to just kind of watch the ball the entire time and move as fast as you can, it helps a lot.
Okay, and then Alyssa, how about you from how you saw it?
I'd probably say the same. Most of our district was slower than what we saw in playoffs, but yeah, you just have to watch what's on the other side to dictate how you're going to move on our side.
Okay, so the challenging non-district schedule that you all had, several tournaments that you all go to, Coach Gay, just ask yourselves about in terms of what did you want to get out of those tournaments, and did you feel like you got what you wanted out of those tournaments? Because you play about 5-6 matches in each of those, and even though they're 2 sets, you're still, or 2 out of 3, you're still trying to get maximum effort out of those.
Absolutely. We went down to the Katy tournament, Katy ISD Sci-Fair tournament, and we played against a lot of the Houston area teams that are just completely a different style of volleyball than up here in the Metroplex, for the most part. And I think that the game is very athletically forward, and they're really a good competition, and it's just different. And so, you look ahead using that tournament for postseason. You play really high-quality teams. I mean, like Grand Oaks that just won the 6A Division I team. They were there in the gym next to us. Several of the postseason teams from that area we got to see and got to play. And that was a really good opportunity up here to get those quality teams and just a different style of volleyball. And then we went to the Northwest tournament, and we played Byron Nelson, the #1 team in the country.
Right.
And they're just the competition level in the Metroplex and down in the Houston, Katy area, the quality of teams, the quality of athletes, the quality of volleyball and coaches. You have to set your team up for success, even though you might lose some of those matches. You have to get that opportunity and see some of those really good teams, and it really does create. For a coach, it allows you to see your weaknesses because you just see a lot of really good volleyball on the other side of the net. And I'm pretty sure there was an outside hitter from one of those matches we played at Northwest. The arm swing must have been 30 miles an hour. It was a great arm swing. So, just things like that. You're just how do you adjust to those kind of things. So, and then we went to the Arlington Classic tournament, and we won that one. So I think that we still saw really good quality teams. We got to see Amarillo there. That's where we beat them the first time we played them.
Right.
I think that to set them up for a long postseason, you have to challenge them in the beginning.
And what did you two feel like you got out of those 3 tournaments? I'll start with you on this, Alyssa.
I would say going into each tournament, we would have to take advantage of it and use all the other teams to get better in each game, because we knew that would be our toughest competition in the beginning of the year compared to our district play.
Okay. And then what about for you, Kinley?
Yeah, I just think we have to play our best in those beginning matches because our district isn't very good. So being able to have the opportunity to play the higher level teams, it helps a lot to just kind of see what we need to work on, focus on during our district.
Okay, and that's, I mean, she does speak the truth here, because you guys didn't drop a set during the course of the district season. I mean, you went 10-0, didn't drop a set, as we mentioned. You weren't really challenged in a lot of those sets either. And that can also create an era of complacency, because you're just walking into these matches every Tuesday and Friday, and you're just getting your 3 and out, and you're out of the gym sometimes maybe within an hour or something like that. And so as a coach, it's great that they're winning, but then there's that we can't. This is going to be a heck of a lot different when we get into the postseason. So what were you trying to do to at least say it's not going to be like this when we get into late October, early November, ladies? We got to keep that in mind. So what's going through your mind in terms of how to make sure that they don't get too complacent about that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Each team in our district has really good positives that challenged us and still provided some weaknesses that we could still work on every day in practice. It really is about a respect for the other side of the game, other side of the net, excuse me, and really just, taking what they do really well and maintaining what they do really well, and then piecing that together in our practices collectively moving forward into the playoffs. And so, one team that we play in our district has a phenomenal outside. We knew that teams moving forward have good outsides. So how can we utilize this opportunity against a good outside and get better and adjust to her? Some teams have really good setters, and how do you, middles, how can we do a better job of recognizing where the ball is going when you have a good setter on the other side of the net? So each of those teams in district play did provide us opportunity to get better. I would say that we just transferred that into our practices, and we really had very high-level competitive practices every single day. And the speed of our practices, I think, was one of the main reasons why we had success in the postseason.
Okay, so let's talk about the postseason, because you guys opened up with Birdville, and you did drop a set. Breaking news, they did drop a set. But I want to ask you a little bit about what that meant, though, because, again, hadn't dropped a set for the longest time. There really wasn't a ton of adversity during the match that you all were going through. So you lose that one to Birdville, and I'm going to start with you on this, Kinsley, about, okay, we just got punched, and now we got to come back. So what was the thought about after you guys dropped that set to Birdville and how you had to bounce back on that?
I think that in the third set, we just kind of took it like we'd already won the first two, and so thinking that we won the first two, we're going to win the next, and so I think that's when a little bit of the complacency set in. Mm-hmm. But then in that fourth set, we came back and realized it matters, so we need to play more confident, better, just all together.
Did you see that, Alyssa, as kind of like maybe a wake-up call, saying, "Look, you're not infallible. You got to keep playing because someone else wants to win this match too."
Yes, I think it showed how hard we're gonna have to work during the playoffs to win each game, no matter who we're gonna play.
Okay, so I think the most impressive thing during this playoff run was the fact that you guys went out to Snyder and you were playing at Amarillo. They were 3, you were 6, according to the polls that I saw. You swept that match. I want to talk about it. Just what was going well in that match, Claire? I mean, what did you see? Why did this match go like this? Because I think anyone who doesn't have a dog in the hunt would have thought this is probably going to go 5, maybe leaning toward Amarillo just because they have the shorter drive per se, and they're West Texas and blow, sand, blow, and all that sort of thing. And so but why did this match turn out the way it did?
They had not lost a match since they played us previously in the Arlington Classic tournament. So I think that they came in, on a very big winning streak just like we had. And they're a well-coached team. They have a lot of history in the game of volleyball for the Amarillo Sandies with, legends of players and coaches that have just done really great things out there. So I think that we capitalized having an offense that had, hitters from all 3 parts of our net, and they were pretty limited to what they could return the ball with. And I think that we capitalized very quickly on that, keeping their best player. We made her work as hard as possible, and I think that was a huge testament to that win in 3. And I don't think, for me, Amarillo is a good rivalry because I played them all the time growing up. I think this crew doesn't have that quite rivalry yet. I think it will become one because now we're going to see them a little bit more moving forward as years to come. But I think that they did an excellent job with the game plan that day, and they prepared for it. They knew what the strengths that the other side had, and we took them completely out of their game plan.
So let's talk about the regional final against Colleyville Heritage. That was actually played the night that Aledo opened the playoffs against Chisholm Trail, and again, Colleyville Heritage had just gone to the state tournament the previous year, so they were looking to return. And so the pressure of a match like this to get to the state semifinals, that always seems to be more than. They always say that the state semifinal is the more pressurized one than the state championship game, but they all carry their own amount of pressure. But there's something about going to a Final Four kind of ambiance to it. I want to ask you a little bit about that, Kinsley, about what the feeling was like going in, because all 3 of these, because they swept them, but all 3 of these were tight. But what was the difference, do you think, Kinsley, as far as the way that match went down against Colleyville Heritage?
I think that's the 3rd time we've played them, and most of us, it's the 3rd time we've played them, and we were eager to play that match. We wanted to beat them bad because it's a rivalry for us. And just being able to play all as one and play together and for each other, that's probably one of the best games we played all year.
Really? Okay, and then what about you, Alyssa?
I would say each person on the team really wanted to win that game because we knew we were walking in the gym and we knew what was, who we were going to play against. And
you handled it well. You guys seem to make up a lot of ground.
Yeah.
You withstood every kind of run that they made at you, then it would seem like. And so, okay, so state semifinal last week against McKinney North. I realize that this isn't the most fun thing to talk about, but heck of a match, 5 sets. The last set decided I think it was 15-13. I would imagine that you all could walk out of that match despite the setback and say, we left it all out on the floor. At least that's what the scores would indicate to me. You tell me, Kinsley.
Yeah, I think that we played hard. We knew we hadn't ever been there before, and neither had McKinney North. So we were all ready to compete, but we just fell short that game. But I think everyone played as hard as they could, and we played for each other.
There wasn't, and for you, Alyssa, I would imagine the same thing. Just there was did everything possible. Sometimes we just didn't get a break to go our way or something like that. For you, when you're coaching in a match like that, Claire, as far as, and it's so, all these matches could have been decided by just one errant serve or a ball that hits the line, or misses going inbounds by an inch or two or whatever. Just what's it like to coach in a match like that, even though it didn't go your way?
Oh, it's exciting. And, getting to coach a high-level group of girls that are able to adjust in the middle of a set, come from behind in set 4 to push to set 5. And, set 5, anybody can win.
Right.
To jump out early in that match, or in set 5, they rallied back. They just made less errors than we did at the end of the day. We had, I think, 10 or 11 missed serves, and that's crucial, in a match like that. Different setting, different stage, the nerves set in. They played pretty perfect against us. I don't think they made a ton of errors or unforced errors, kind of how we played against Colleyville the Friday before. So, I will give it to our girls, though. They fought very hard, and they could have said after the third set, when we was not our best set of the 5, they could have just said, we're done. And they came from behind in set 4, rallied, and just played till they played every point until the very end as hard as they possibly could. And they were not giving up. And that's, it's awesome. I was really proud of them.
And for you, Alyssa, I would think, too, after that disappointing third set, you've got to say, we got to dig down, because even though it doesn't look great on stylistically, we got to keep playing, because we don't want to take the uniforms off. We want to try and get to the championship match.
Yeah, I think in the 4th set, it really hit all of us. And it was if we don't push now, we're not, it's obviously the end of our season. So I think everyone just had that in the back of their mind, we have to give everything we can right now to push and win the game.
All right, and then for Kinsley, for you, when you get to a 5th and deciding set, this is it, and you have to go to 15. Of course, it can go beyond that because you got to win by 2. But just take us through, because there's that urgency here, because there's no luxury of getting to 25. It's 15, and that's it. So, what's the stress like? What's the urgency like to play on that? Because every point becomes even more magnified. That sort of thing.
It can get nervous, but at the end of the day, it's a fun game to be in. When it goes to 5, it's a competitive game. And so being able to be in that 5th set, the nerves set in, but once you start playing, it's just the game kind of takes over and you just play your heart out. Okay,
we should tell you, too, by the way, that McKinney North didn't win it. Flower Bluff won the state championship, too. But I want to ask you two young ladies about what you'll take from this season, what you'll remember. Of course, for you, Kinsley, obviously this is it for you, but what's going to be your best memory of this season?
Probably just the relationships with the girls. Just not on the court too, outside of the school, outside of everything, we were all just best friends. Everyone was family. So just being able to have that relationship with everyone it's going to be really good.
And then for you, Alyssa, obviously you're great memories, but then you're going to be one of the important pieces of this team coming back in 2025. So just talk about both of those elements.
Yeah, I would say this past season we got the best that we could out of it and really ended in a good place that we should be proud of. And then for next year, I think we're just going to have to work hard every day in the off season and just use it to get better and remember this year as one of the best years we've had.
Of course. And then finally, I'm going to ask you, too, about your recruiting situation. We'll start with you. Obviously, Kinsley, you've signed with Lamar down in Beaumont. What does that mean to be able to play in college? All the work that you put in starting this sport when you were a toddler and then going through junior high and then middle school and then having this opportunity. What does that mean to you?
I mean, it's amazing. Just knowing that like all the work and hours I spent in the gym has really paid off. It's just a really good feeling.
Okay, and then for you, obviously, Alyssa, you're still a junior, but you've already given your verbal commitment to Abilene Christian, though. So the fact that you've given this commitment this early, and the fact that you will have the same opportunity as Kinsley has, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I would say the same. It's like probably a few years ago, it would be my dream to play in college, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get there, but being here now, looking back at what my thought process was, it's amazing to see that I could be here now.
Okay, and then final thoughts for you just about the season, Claire, as far as just what you'll take from the season and what you hope to build on going into 2025.
You know, I think the seniors did, a fabulous job setting a foundation of what the culture they want to be remembered by, and it was just a true culture of family, playing very selflessly, and I hope that moving forward the rest of our program builds on that, and I think that mentality and alone, and especially a team sport like volleyball where you can't play it by yourself, and you have to rely on each other every single day. I think that is a great driving force for these underclassmen moving forward to recognize what legacy these 9 seniors are leaving. And I hope that they build on that and that they cherish the memory of that, because that ultimately brings such a positive environment. And it's not just the kids, the families, the parents, they all were that way. And that's, an amazing season. You can't look back and be disappointed whatsoever. You can only just say this is how success looks. This is what you have to do to get to that level. And you just hope that they continue to build on it, and that they recognize that family and teamwork is really the ultimate way you can get to that point. I mean, good volleyball does help. So.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Second semifinal appearance, too, for Coach Gay getting this program here. She did it in her first year in 2017. To my far left is Alyssa. Todd. To her right is Kinsley Elms and head coach Claire Gay. Give it up for all these folks. Heck of a season for this volleyball team. And we want to remind you that the Bearcats play Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock start out in Snyder against Amarillo Tascosa. Hank FM will have the broadcast for you with the pregame show starting at 12:30 with yours truly, Kyle Hicks, Mercedes Meyer, and the Deacon. And then we will return here next week as the Bearcats will look forward to what we hope will be a regional final appearance. We'll talk with Coach Jones about that and selected players. I'm Kevin Lonnquist. Thanks you all for joining us. We'll see you all next week on the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, with Bearcats head coach Robby Jones and the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist. Please like and subscribe to this podcast and tell a friend. You're also welcome to join us every Monday night at 7 from Blue Rays of New Orleans in Hudson Oaks. And then listen to every Aledo Bearcats game, home and away, live on Real Country 92.1 Hank FM, on the free 92.1 Hank FM app, or online at 921hankfm.com.